All right, guys, welcome back to Home Built. And this week, to start with at least, we have a few more little bits and pieces to finish off the cab completely on the Frankenhauler. So hopefully we can start getting to the stage where we can move on to the tilt bed. All right, guys, well, before we get into it today, I want to take a quick second out to thank this week's video sponsor, which is Redtiger, with the world's first full night color dash cam with in-cabin view. So this is an HD 3-channel camera with 4K front, 2.5K rear, and 1080p cabin views. And it uses the Sony Starvis 2 sensors in the front and rear cameras to prevent under or overexposure in difficult lighting. And the 4K resolution means you can pick up all the details, including clearly identifying number plates. And with the camera using intelligent algorithms to achieve true scene color reproduction, as you can see here, with the world's first full night color dash cam. So the kit comes complete with the main unit consisting of the 4K front camera and the cabin camera, along with the big 3-inch touchscreen, which is nice and easy to navigate to go through all your custom settings. And then using the app, you can download all your footage super fast at up to 30 megabits a second using the 5.8G Wi-Fi 6, which is around 10 times faster than the traditional 2.4G Wi-Fi. So head down to the link in the description and check out the Redtiger dash cam and use my code to get more than $70 off. And as always, help out the companies that help out the channel. All right, let's get back to the build. All right, guys, welcome back. And if you were watching last week, you've seen that I actually did the lettering on the side of the Frankenhauler and clear coated the entire thing in a matte clear. It still has a bit of a sheen on it, but I'm actually liking the effect and it's looking really good. If you missed it, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And like always, do the things like, subscribe, and comment. Particularly that stuff really does help out that algorithm. Now, last week, some eagle-eye viewers noticed that on the passenger side, I might have stuck the dot for the eye on towing above the N and not above the I. I didn't notice it. It was a couple of you that did, and I'm an idiot, but it's going to stay there, and that's another little Easter egg of my home-builtedness. So anyway, I'm not that concerned about that, but I will just leave it as it is. It's not something that I'm going to go through and clean it up and patch it in and tidy it up. I'm not really overly bothered. And a big thank you to Gary Jones, who messaged me on Instagram. He has a cab over, early 50s Ford, and brought something to my attention about my rear window. So if you noticed last week, I put the rear window in and I had the edges that were sticking out. And I mean, it sort of looks like the window is bowed the wrong way and it actually curves this way, and I've actually put it in backwards, but the window glass is dead flat. So there is no turning it around. What he did point out to me, which I didn't realize, but I've done a little bit more research since, for some strange reason, every vehicle I've done with these type of rope-in windows, I've done it this way. But these particular trucks, this window goes in from the inside, not from the outside. So that's why I did it wrong. And if you actually look at the way that the lips work on these windows, that makes actually some sense now looking at it. So later on this afternoon, I'll see how Mrs. Jeff is doing, if she's got some time to come out and give me a hand, and we'll put this in again. And hopefully, by putting it in from the inside, it might go a little bit smoother, and then we can call the glass, at least front and back, done. Now, I still need to put in the door glass on either side, but I'm sort of procrastinating because I'm not looking forward to that, because I I hate putting indoor glass and getting it all lined up and stuff. So I'm putting it off, and I'm going to move back onto the front. What we have to do here on the front is I have to do something with the lights. So we have the headlights, which you saw I just painted the clear coat over because I have to change them. So let's tackle the headlights first. All right, old headlight globe going out. This is a sealed unit by Lucas, the Lord of Darkness. So that can go. And I have here, because it's a standard, I think it's a 7-inch unit, this actually fits in the housing ring, fits, and this takes an H4 globe, so there's a plethora of options there. So that makes this part really easy. It'll all fit in the housing and I can just replace it. The only issue I have is that the mounting nubs for the light are in a different angle. If I put them into the mounting nubs that are supposed to be there already, it's twisted around slightly, so I'm just going to mark them out all the way around and notch them out so that this globe will sit in nicely into the standard bucket, and it's a really easy headlight switch. So just hold in place and mark out where I need to trim, and then it's just an easy matter of getting out the die grinder and clearancing until it all sits in there quite nicely. And you can see the original trim ring fits straight back on, and it all looks like factory. So moving over to the driver's side and doing the same thing, sort of getting everything loose, because all this stuff probably has not come off in at least 30 years, I would say, but potentially its entire life. It's all quite old and corroded, but not too bad, to be honest, and it's all reusable, so getting the new lenses in is not a big deal. And this side didn't need to be trimmed, it actually fit standard. All right, I think those look really good. I mean, they don't have the same dome shape that the old ones did, but I'm not losing sleep over that. I think they're doing well. They don't look too modern. I think they still look period correct enough to actually have some decent light coming through them without actually compromising on looking like a robot vomit thing that often people put on these things. So that part I am happy with. Next thing I need to talk about is the indicators at the front. At the moment, I have the one on this side, and the one on this side was missing. I do have the inner part, so this inner part sat up in here, the bit that held the globe, but I didn't have any of the screen that went for it. I have managed to get new lenses, so I've got a new lens for both sides, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull apart the driver's side, and I'll use the inner and see if I can come up with some kind of my own outer housing and fabricate it out from scratch. So let's see how that goes. All right, and that is the piece that I need to recreate. So it looks a bit like a knight's mask or something, but you can see it's got a nice even curve going around. But the difficult part is going to be there is a recess on either side where the bolting location is, and then it actually has a turned over lip all the way around, and that is going to create some challenges that I'm here for. I'm going to have a bit of a think. I'm going to have a bit of a play and see what I can come up with that will make it so that I can recreate this by hand. So I start with a piece of paper using the dirty finger trick. It's always a good way to get a basic template of what I need, and I've started with only half of the piece, which is potentially dangerous because it's hard to get the exact center correct, so it's easy to make a piece that when you fold it in the middle it doesn't actually line up with the other side. But I'm pretty confident I've got a pretty good template here, so I then go out and I start tracing it onto a piece of my scrap steel. And you can see here I'm just marking it all out, making sure I've got a good
template, and then I'm trimming it out, and I'm leaving around a centimetre or so all the way around the edge of my piece, and that will become more apparent later. So here you can see I've got some bits of scrap 6mm steel plate, and my idea now is to start tackling the screw recesses on either side of this little light bucket. And what you can see here is I cut off a piece of steel rod on an angle, and I'm welding it to the base plate, so it's roughly the shape of the indent in the bucket that I'm looking for. And with the male side complete, you can see here I've got a flat piece and I'm cutting a female piece in, and basically what I'm making is a press die to be able to try and press that little recess into my piece of sheet steel. So once I've clearanced it out reasonably close, get in there with the die grinder and make sure that it fits, and just keep trimming it until it's a nice fit. But we need to make sure that they stay lined up, so I'm drilling holes on either side of my die, and you'll see why in a second.
All right, so you saw me working away then, and I've made myself a bit of a die to be able to press out the little indents on the sides of this piece. So basically what I did is I got a piece of rod that I cut at an angle and welded it onto a bit of flat plate, and then drilled out a corresponding slot, lined it up in the drill press, and then drilled a couple of holes off to either side, so that basically it's wide enough so that this piece will be able to sit in between the two holes I have, and these two holes will fit in a couple of drill bits. They're 3mm, so what this does is it will lock it into place, because of course once I put a piece of sheet metal in between these two, you won't be able to see where the male part lines up with the female part. You won't be able to work out how to line them up. So by having these two drill bits here, it lines it up perfectly, gets it in the right spot. So let's take it over to the press now and see if I can get this to actually press out a little indent into a piece of scrap sheet the way I want it.
So you can see here I've got my die in the press, and I'm using a socket that will sit over the top of the male portion so that that doesn't get in the way, just so I can press it down nice and square. And even using some lubricant, I've tried it 3 or 4 times and it's not looking great.
Well, it didn't really work the way I wanted it to. Basically, it keeps tearing out the top. Basically, the steel just, it's stretching it that much too far, and yeah, I don't think it's really going to work the way I wanted it to. So I think I'm going to have to come up with another option for this, but I have another alternative, which I think I will do it that way, and as in make it as a separate piece, fold up a piece, weld a cap in it, weld it into place, and that will do the job. So yeah, all right, that was half an hour of making a press tool that didn't work.
So we'll forget about those screw recesses for now, and you can see I'm using the bead roller to tip the edges of this piece, and then got it in the break and bent my crease in the middle. Then I move on to using my pliers wrench. I like these because they've got nice flat jaws, and I'm gradually going around and tipping a bit more of an edge onto this piece without creasing it and making a whole bunch of buckles.
All right, so this is the start of what I need. So you can see I broke the middle of it, and I turned these lip edges on the bead roller just to get me a start, because as you can see on the original, it has this little edge. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the shrinker, or the stretcher in this case. I'm going to stretch these edges here, which should put the curl I want into getting the shape right, and let's see how that goes.
So it's onto the stretcher, and I always find this thing magical. It doesn't really feel like it's doing a lot, like just very, very discreetly stretching the metal in certain places, but it doesn't take long, as you can see here, until you start getting the curves in the piece, and it really shows how well it works. And I'm just using the original one as a template and just going backwards and forwards and checking it until I get it right. And then I realized in some spots I went too fast, so I brought my smaller little handheld machine out and start shrinking it back to get it in shape again.
The curve here, it's matching in pretty well. I'm pretty happy with the overall shape of this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to trim down this edge and start cutting in a hole. I'm going to creep up on the hole in the middle to be able to fit the lens through, and let's just keep creeping up on it and get it so that we have a nice fitting lens and we have our little bucket.
So using my accurate trim marking method by resting a lower finger on the piece and then running around holding the texture at a exact distance, I get my mark and then trim it out nice and neatly with the angle grinder and then clean it all up with the flap disc. Now you can buy these entire light assemblies, but they're not cheap, and the ones I found are chrome, and I like to make this stuff myself.
Okay, so I just sat the other one back in place, and this one will go in relatively nicely. It's not perfect, but I haven't bolted it in yet. I might need to, I might actually trim this end a little bit more, get a little bit more curvature there, but that is going to do the job, at least as well as the other one does.
So I have my rough shape for where the lens goes in place, but I don't want to totally trust it, so I'm just going to trim bits out and test and trim and test until I feel happy that it's fitting all where I want it to be. I'm using the belt sander, the little air belt sander. It's really effective for these sharp corners.
All right, that is good enough for me. That will match in, and again, it's not perfect, but neither is the rest of the truck, so that is looking really good. So I don't have my bolting tabs yet, so that is my next task, is to make my little mounting points, and then we can paint it up and fit it on.
But first, Mrs. Jeff has a little bit of time to give me a hand, so we pull out the old window again and refit the string, and then, as you can see, I fit it in from the inside. And with Mrs. Jeff's help, I wrestle with the string all the way around and get it fitted back in again. It does make it a bit harder where I've done some rust repairs on here. The steel edging all around the inside of the frame is a little sharp and not the best for mounting rubber.
All right, that looks much better. Now, I did tear the rubber a couple of spots because I've repaired that window frame. There were some sharp edges in there. So yeah, I've torn the rubber a little bit there, and that one's not too bad. This one is a bit worse on this corner, but what I'm going to do is I'll use some black windscreen sealant and I'll repair that for now. If it becomes an issue, if it leaks or anything, I'll just get another rubber. The rubber's not expensive. It's just more struggling with the same issue again. But that window at least is in properly, so it goes in from the inside, which is not something I ever realised.
Back onto this light bucket, and I am starting to trim out a slot for the recess for these screws. And at first it's just making a hole that's roughly the right shape, but what I'm actually doing is the mounting point. I've left a tab that I can fold backwards, and I've drilled some holes in it so that I've got the mounting point in the right spot. Then you can see I've got some scrap and I've wrapped it around a piece of steel rod to get the curves that I want, and then I'm just trimming off a bit and I can weld that on.
All right, so here we have the recesses. I just welded them in. That was reasonably straightforward, much easier than pressing them, and definitely much stronger, as like you saw, it was tearing the steel anyway. So I think that is going to do the job.
Alright, so I pull out the original globes out of the coaster, and I am looking at a way to try and get modern globes to fit into this housing. And I soon worked out that actually this housing takes the exact same globes as what the Toyota Coaster did. It's just old and rusty. So I'm pulling them apart on both sides, getting, in this case, an old globe that was stuck in out of the housing, and then with a die grinder and a sanding reel I'm trying to clean it all up so that the surfaces will actually conduct electricity and the globes will actually work. But as you can see here, they actually do the job.
Alright, so with these housings that are here, I was actually going to change out the entire center housing and change all this out. But this housing, despite being over 70 years old, is actually the same bayonet fitting that the modern globes use. So they haven't changed it in over 70 years. And with a bit of sanding, I've got it to work, and I can actually get the globes to illuminate. Even if they're 24 volt globes, they'll still illuminate a little bit dimmer with 12. And I can get the globes to work, so that is a win. So I just need to order myself some amber globes and I should be good. But for the time being, let's paint up the new little shroud I made, and we'll be another job down.
So I quickly hit this piece with some Scotch-Brite and some wax and grease remover, and then some etch primer. Once it's dry, I can take it over and I start airbrushing on the red oxide primer that I used before, and then using an old sponge, I'm just using the leftover of the paint that I used on the cab and dabbing it on and mixing it up with a few different colours and bits and pieces and a bit of airbrush here and there, and just trying to give the effect that I am looking for.
All right, so that is looking good enough for me. So there's the original one. This is it's a bit different, but it's still looking pretty good, and it's barely seen. I think that will do the job. So now I'm going to mix up a little bit of the matte clear coat and give it a coat of clear, and then we can bolt it on and call that done.
So I mix up a tiny little bit of the matte clear, as it's only a tiny surface area, and then I use the airbrush to give it 2 good coats.
All right, so next thing to get all of the lights working, I have this wiring. This is the original wiring for the bus, but obviously it does not stretch to where it needs to go now. So I need to tidy it up. There were dual headlights before. We now have the bigger single headlights. So I need to clean up the wiring harness and extend it and get everything down in there. So let's do that.
Now to the fun bit that everybody loves, and that's wiring. Now, I actually don't mind wiring. Once I get my head into it, I actually just plug along and don't do too badly at it, but it's very, very time consuming, and basically I'm just splicing wires in here and using heat shrink on all of them so that I've got a nice, reasonably sealed connection, and it's just a matter of going through and extending all these wires until they all terminate where I want them to.
All right, so yesterday afternoon I spent a lot of time doing the wiring, getting the wiring extended so that it'll now fit where I've got my new headlights, and the whole time I've been sort of contemplating how I'm going to actually work in these indicators. So as I showed you yesterday, I was mounting them and getting these all working. So these original little globe housings still work for my indicators. The trouble is that I also need park lights. And I was trying to work out how I could mount another park light housing so that these would actually double up as park lights and indicators. But what got me thinking is I also need side repeaters of some sort, because I've only got indicators on the front. I am going to need some sort of indicator on the side. What I remembered I do have is I have these basic little LEDs. So it's nice and subtle. Okay, it's not an old style bulb, but this will be nice and subtle that I can put on the side. And these, I wasn't sure if they were just 12 volt, but I searched for 24 volt ones, and most of the 12 volt ones said they were also 24 volt. So I wired one in to just check it, and it works as a 24 volt. but as you can see, it was flashing fast. So I may need to get some sort of resistor for that to sort that out. I know it's a common thing when you swap in the bulbs. It's flashing fast, telling you there's a bulb out. So what I think I'm going to do is I've got a total change of plan. Is this standard fitting is going to be the park light, and inside that housing I am also going to mount the indicator bulb next to it, so that I have the park and indicator behind the same lens, and these will be linked into the side repeaters as well. So that makes my wiring a little bit easier, and I can get this front end all sorted. So I'm going to drill and mount in one of these, and let's see how it all looks.
So now I know where I want my indicator globe to go. I'm just drilling a hole, and these LEDs are very easy to fit. I bought them a long time ago, a bunch of them to use on the Ferrari. I only actually needed 2, but it came as a pack of 10, so I've got them sitting here. A bit of guesstimation as to where to put the side repeater, and like I said, they're not the most original pieces, but I think they are subtle enough that you don't really notice them, but they will be effective enough to do the job. And all this stuff, there's a lot of lying under my back under the truck, which is a good thing that it's not too low at the moment, and then I can reassemble everything and start getting ready to give it a test. And of course, the other big thing with extending these wires is cable management and actually tucking them out of the way. I'm using the corrugated sheathing over all of the wires. I've got a couple of different sizes. I'm using the sort of smaller stuff for the 1 or 2 wires that are going down to the headlights themselves, but this main loom moving forward, I've got one of the bigger sleeves that I'm putting on everything here, and then wrapping it up and just tidying everything out of the way, because that's a big part of these builds, is the wiring and getting it all nice and neat and tidy.
All right, so we have, I hope, all of the front end wired up, finally connected back in again, and we should have headlights, indicators, park lights, should all work, high beam, low beam. Let's check it, make sure it all is working as it should. All right, park lights, left indicator, right indicator, headlights, high beam, low beam. That looks like a win to me. I am happy with that. Okay, it's still in the same housing as the park light, but I think that's all working quite well. And yeah, we have everything working. One last test. We have horn 2. We have a win. Yeah, buddy. Yeah. All right, and last thing I just did is I went through and tidied up this wiring in the engine bay. I used some of these Raceworks cable ties, which are really cool because they've got a little plug on the end. So you just drill a hole, it clips into the body, and then just wrap the cable tie around, and you've got a nice, secure, nice, neat, stowed away cable. So that is sorted, and we now have front end wiring all done. So the last thing I want to try and tackle today is fixing in the bonnet latch. So the emergency latch is still in and working. So basically it's just got a hook that can catch the front lip of the bonnet. So it will stop the bonnet coming up all the way, but it still lets the bonnet move sort of, yay high. I bought myself a new latch because this truck never came with one. This was quite an affordable reproduction part. And I have the original pin and spring. So let's get these things in the sandblaster, see if we can knock a bit of the rust off of it and see if we can actually get this reinstalled into the truck.
So for these small little bits, the sandblaster is really the best tool for the job. It gets everything off. I use a pretty harsh abrasive in mine because, as I said, I don't use it that often. And now I'm trying to get the old nuts loose, and the lower nut comes loose quite easily. It's not a problem, but the upper one, that is the issue, and it is really locked on, and I realised the only way to get it off is to cut it off. So I cut it off and bash it off with a screwdriver, and then I need to clean up the threads with my tap and die set. So using the die, I'm going through and I've cleaned up the threads. It is a 1/2 inch UNF. I have Imperial tap and die set, but I do not have any Imperial hardware, so I think it's time to make my own, and that is what I'm doing here.
All right, so I cleaned up my plunger, if you want to call it that, and I managed to get the bottom nut moving. The top nut was totally locked on there, and it was mostly wasted away. It had corroded completely away. But I managed to run a die down the threads, and then I used, I didn't have any Imperial hardware, obviously. I only have metric stuff, but this is an Imperial thread. So I got a metric bolt and I drilled it out and tapped out an Imperial thread into the center of this. So now I actually have a nut that will fit on, and we can start looking at fitting all this stuff into the truck.
Now, the old mounting location for that plunger was actually rusted out, and I did repair that in my rust repair session. So I drilled a new hole and everything else pretty much lined up nicely.
All right, that is the whole front end sorted. So I actually have a bonnet now. So I have a bonnet catch that with a safety catch lifts up and it goes back. Whoop. If I get it right. And it locks. So I have a bonnet, I have headlights, I have indicators, I have park lights. Yes, the front end is looking good. But that is all the time we have that this week. So I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff. Yes.
Hey guys, 1961 saw Ford release their 4th generation of their F-Series trucks. The panel van was discontinued, but Ford now offered an integrated pickup or unibody option. This meant that the cab and bed were joined as one piece without a gap in between them. These were offered alongside the style side truck, but were cheaper to make with less stamped panels. However, they did sell poorly, with rumours that heavy loads could cause the doors to jam. The 1965 model introduced an all-new frame with an all-new twin I-beam suspension that would continue to be used all the way through to 1979.
All right, well, I'm very happy. We spent a lot of time getting lights working, and we have them all sorted out on the front of the truck, so I'm very happy with that. Once I work out the tail lights, I'm going to probably have to put some sort of resistor in the line somewhere to get the indicators to blink at the right speed. With the hazards on like it is now, it's fine, but we'll sort that out later. There's plenty of options for that. I also do want to mention, there were lots of talk about my grammar on the side of the truck. That was Frank N. Hauler as opposed to Frank N. The dot. I didn't really realise properly before that it was actually the dot inferred. It was an abbreviation, so the Frank wouldn't be abbreviated. But his name's Franklin, okay? So it is abbreviated. So it's still Frank Dot.
What's N short for?
I said Nathan, whatever.
Nate.
Nate.
Frank Nate
Hauler.
I think he's a Nate.
Frank Nate Hauler. Yeah. In any case.
Is that the one you made?
Yes.
Nice.
I made, the bucket and everything. Yeah, it's all blends in. You can't even really tell. So,
you know.
All right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that.
Like and subscribe. Let Jeff know what you think, as always. And Patreon if you want to help them out and see the videos a day early with no ads.
Yes. And we'll see you next week. See you guys.
Hey guys. But Ford now offered an integrated option or a unibody panel van. No, it didn't. But Ford now offered a panel van option or a... No, it did not. An integrated pickup. This meant that the cab and the bed were joined as one. An automotive metro. These were offered alongside the side. There.
Yes.
Nailed it.